Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Deborah, aka the Sunset Girl Creates, and today is our Wednesday Come Knit or Crochet with me. So today, the first one we're going to be crocheting today. But before I start doing too much crochet, I pulled out one of my sock projects that I was working on. So I have this sock here that's completed, right? It has all the stitch markers in it now still because it's doing all the counting, right, of my rows, so that I know how many rows from start to finish I have as well on this side, okay? So, and they go all the way down to where I start the toe. This is where I'm at now on the second one. I am working on the gusset, okay, or actually the heel flap right now. The heel flap's being done. Then we'll do the heel turn and the gusset, okay? But right now I have to go back and do a couple adjustments to the 2 rows that I have shown here, as well as a couple others. I have to drop down and do some updates and changes to them. So I will be working on that this afternoon. We might be working on that the next one. We'll see how we're doing, okay? I'm doing about 20 to 30 rows a day, so it's not taking too long once I get started. So I just kind of wanted to go over there. We are doing the Illuminations blanket by Felted Button still. So that's the blanket we're working on. This is where we're at. So this is where we started. This is our second set, and I was in the middle of the second set here when we left off. I've now put in the 3rd set and started the 4th set of colors. So we're now to 8 of the 32 colors. So I have 2 more rows of each of the colors to go. And we'll be reading from Recrochet again. Our article is going to be choosing the right yarn, right? And so I have a nice interactive program set up for this one. So we will be going over the interactive program shortly. I have various yarn weights and types of yarns, and so that we can kind of look at the kind of yarns they're talking about as we go through the article. Right now I currently don't have any lace weight or super bulky or higher. Lace weight is not uncommon to have in my house. I don't have any right now, so I'm not doing any lace work. I haven't bought anything to do lace work recently. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about how wonderful it would be to get back to doing some lace work though, right? So I might be looking into that as well. And seeing, because I know I have a couple that might work for lace work here in the house. I don't have them here to show because I wasn't really sure where those ones ended up. I have a whole dresser and 3 drawers of 2 nightstands that currently all hold yarn. Okay, and then I have a couple shelves that still have yarn on them. So I went through my various types of yarn in most of my areas, and I did find a few yarns that we can work with as we go. And as we review the article, we'll be able to see some various different yarns that they are talking about, okay? So that was the point of me going and searching my drawers. No pun intended. My dresser drawers, as they were called. And I found different types of yarn to use. So we'll be doing more, I'll be putting down the knitting or the crocheting. I'm talking about knitting. What am I talking about knitting for? While we're reading the article, I will probably put my crochet down when we get to our yarn, because yarn weight is more of an interactive type thing. I could show you the pictures, but I think actual types of yarn will help us be able to see what the article is trying to help us learn about, right? Because what it is we're trying to do is we're trying to learn about the various yarns, right? So we need to make sure that when we're going through, it's a lot easier to see yarn than to look at it in a picture. Of course, it's always easier if you are touching the yarn. It'll make even more of a difference. But in this kind of environment, since it's a YouTube video, we will be doing an interactive. I'll be pulling them out, letting you see the various kinds of yarns that may be available. Now, mind you, I've only got a small selection of yarns here for you to view, okay? I don't have all of the yarns, the types of yarns they may be discussing. But I brought out what I have. So these are part of my stash, right? And so I'm going to show you some of the things I have in my stash as we go through the article. And all of these yarns that you see, they are not necessarily right away earmarked for a project. They may have been part of a different project and there's leftover yarn. I think these are all full skeins. One of them is a cotton, and I know that cotton hasn't been used up completely. I have a couple different kind of cotton yarns to show you. So we have some cotton, we have some different kinds of wool, and we have some different kinds of acrylic yarn, which that will keep us quite busy over the course of our hour today, going over and learning about various weights of yarn. So I'm currently using a 2 yarn. So this is a 2 yarn. So you can see it's pretty thin. See how thin this yarn is? Okay. Camera. Okay, here. I have a camera in a different position, so I'm not so used to getting to that camera right away, but as you can see, this is a size 3, okay? So it's 2, I mean, and it's a thinner yarn. And it's all about the weight and the wraps as well. So if you're looking at it, your weight is 2, but that really depends on the way the yarn is spun, right? Because we can spin yarn any way that we want, whether we want it to be lace weight at a number, I don't know, 60 or 80, I think it is. Yeah, 60 is the one that I've used. And there's 20. So there's different size crochet weights, right? But there's also different size of yarns. So, and your yarns will fit basically in the same category, except they'll be much thicker, right? So the bigger the number, the thicker the yarn. In crochet, in crochet thread, the bigger the number, the smaller the thread, okay? So remember, if you're working with a number 3, actually it's probably number 10 is the smaller, is the nicer one. It's usually the one most people use. But the 20 and 60 can also be used. It's very, very thin, so be very careful with that. I'm not reading the article. It's just we're talking about some variations in yarn, and I have a wide variety. So I have a wide variety and ability to do just about any project I want, right? So if I want to knit a pair of socks, I have plenty of sock yarn, okay? This yarn was never earmarked for sock yarn. Now, the big skein, maybe. We'll see. I'm not using the big skein that came with this. I'm just using the minis. The full hank will be spun out into a cake, and used for something else when I'm ready. I usually don't unhank my yarns anymore until I'm ready to use them. I used to think when I got them I needed to hank them up, or cake them up. So there's a difference. This is a hank. So see how this is? This is a hank of yarn, okay? And this is Lion Brand's regular yarn, right? But this is a cake. So see, it's wrapped up and rolled in a cake, so I roll my yarns into cakes, okay? Those are yarns that we will be looking at later, but I just kind of, as I'm talking, the various types of yarn. You have skeins, you have cakes, you have hanks, you have minis, and minis are just small hanks. I don't have any minis currently because they've all been spun now, and they're all been turned into cakes themselves. So that was time consuming to, well, I had some that were already spun up, okay, so those ones that were spun up stayed spun up. I pulled a couple out of my stash because I only had 24 that came with the set. What I did is I pulled one of the yarns from a different stitch into my stitch on accident. So I had to pull it out and frog that stitch. It was only one stitch. You just have to be careful when you're going in, when you have long double crochets, that you don't grab a leg from a previous long double crochet when you're going through trying to put your new stitch in. And that's all I did, is I took and got a hold of a leg of one of the other longer legs right down there, the white one, which is not where I want. I don't want to split those legs. They need to stay. So you just have to be careful when you're going through, because when you're going through here, when you're going through the hole, okay, you have these 4 long legs sitting here, right? So you have these 4 long legs. You want to go in between the 4 legs. So you're in between. You do not want to be in between one of the legs, because all that's going to do is it's going to pull up and it's not going to look right. As soon as you start stitching, you get through it, you'll see that you made that mistake. It's usually pretty clear when you look at it. So that was just all I was doing. When you do make a mistake and you back out, it's called frogging. Frogging for crochet is much different than frogging for knitting. Because remember, once you're done with a stitch in crochet, you automatically move to the next stitch. You don't carry that stitch on your hook anymore, right? Because once you're done here, that stitch is done. And as you can see, they're here. So when you pull out, you take your hook out and you can pull out one or as many crochets as you want. And then you just put your hook back in there. Okay? Let me turn on my fan because it's kind of warm today. Really muggy. I keep a fan up on my couch, by my couch, because it gets really muggy in the house. And it helps me stay cool. So, now the fan's on. And, I'm still watching Once. I'm still on season 4. It's a long season. Once Upon a Time. And it is so good. I just find myself sometimes not even crafting and just paying attention to the show, right? Which is kind of odd for me because I'm not one that likes to pay attention as closely. I like to listen most of the time, and a lot of times it will get me caught up, and I am super interested. So I've been doing a lot of crochet. I'm almost done with that next section of the diamond painting. Tomorrow we'll be working on it again. We'll be back to our Thursday. And then Friday will come. Oh, today was supposed to be Silhouette Day, huh? Oh well. Today's Knit and Crochet Day. Because today's only Tuesday, right? So Wednesday is Silhouette Day. So this is Fridays. We will, you'll still see this on Friday. I'll just have to do another video for the silhouette. And I have it out, so it's not going to take a whole lot of time to do it. I've got it pretty organized. So I'll probably do that video next today. And then this one will just be scheduled out for Friday. Which is great with YouTube. I can do videos a day ahead. Like this one would be normally Wednesday's silhouette with me. Today is Friday's crochet and knit with me. And I do apologize since it's a new schedule for me. It is something that I'm not usually used to doing. So we will get back on the schedule. You will still see silhouette tomorrow, on Wednesday, and on Friday this video will air. So we'll still be talking about the yarn, we'll still be going over those things, but we are only going to be doing it via Friday. So I know the other reason that I'm quite warm, and I am going to take a quick break, and I'm going to dry my face and probably take the heating pad off, which will help why we're doing this. So I'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and that's a little better. I just don't like looking at the shininess of my sweaty face on the video. So I'm going to finish up some of these stitches and keep going. We were talking about Once Upon a Time. It's getting good. It's interesting how they introduce different characters and bring different characters in. Like the villains were wanting to have happy endings in their lives, so they found the writer, and the writer's been punished to the book, and all of these different things are going on, and so it just makes it for an interesting show to watch. Disney does a really great job with this show. I can't wait to watch Once Upon a Wonderland next. So that's going to be probably circled around Alice in Wonderland. The main characters of this one are Snow White and Prince Charming, and their daughter Emma. And then you have the Evil Queen, and you have Rumpelstiltskin. You have Captain Hook already. We have Captain Hook. We have Emma's son, who was adopted by the Evil Queen in Storybrooke. And Emma was the mother. And so now they're both mothers, and it's just an interesting kind of different thing. So you'd really have to watch the whole show to really understand. But it is quite, I have to say, Disney did a great job on their show. It's wonderful. I am loving it. There's 7 seasons. I'm on season 4. And I don't want it to ever end, right? So we'll get to something else next. I think this weekend my husband and I are going to watch Cruella. It's now available on Disney Channel Plus, Disney Plus, and Maleficent. So we're probably going to be watching those movies over the weekend. I'm super excited. I've not seen Maleficent yet, and I've been waiting forever for Cruella to come out. It was available on the 27th, and I almost watched it just because, but I'm waiting for my husband because I kind of think he might get a kick out of these two, because they're really not they're more adult versions. They are the live action versions of Disney, so I'm super excited about that. I am going to go ahead and get us to the end of the row, and then when we get to the end of this row, my yarn is caught up in the other yarn. Okay, how do we get untwisted? Now see, this is the only thing you have to be careful about, twisting up your yarns, right? You don't want your yarns to get twisted in your bag. So all I'm doing is just untwisting and taking that white off so that I can use my yarn and be able to do my stitches and not have it keep pulling through. So the nice thing is you can do when you're knitting or when you're crocheting even, you can move your stitches around. So maybe your stitches didn't quite land exactly where you want, if you want them exactly in between. So if I want them in between these two legs, I'm going to be my best to get between those two legs, okay? But that doesn't mean I'm going to get a nice even catch every time, right? Because I start going fast and it's like I can crochet pretty quickly and it's like second nature and I can just keep going, right? You can see how fast I can go. And all I do is just knit or crochet, right? And it keeps me very busy between knitting and crocheting and the silhouette and any other crafts we might come up with. The silhouette can entail a lot of things. I can build paper with it. I can make stickers with it. But let's go on and talk more about the silhouette in our Wednesday silhouette chat. Come Silhouette with Me Day. Okay, so we are on Friday and we are talking about yarn, and I'm going to do these last 3 stitches. I actually have only 2 left now, and I'm going to put in the last double in here, but I'm not going to carry on because I will have to go back and split it, because in the second stitch, so when I change yarns, I'm in a triple stitch, right? I'm in a double stitch. I have the 3 yarns on my hook, right? I come through here, and now I'm going to drop this blue yarn, and I'm going to find the end to the white yarn and start putting the white yarn in. So now I'm going to have my tail on one side, right? And I'm going to pull it through. And the thing is, I'm going to pull it through. I'm going to hold my blue for a minute right down here. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm pulling from the correct arm of the correct leg. 1, 2, and 3. It's a little bit bigger on the top one, so that it's easier to, when you come to the end, to be able to get into that stitch. When you're done, you can pull these edge stitches and it will tighten that right back up for you, okay? So that's how you change yarn in a crochet project, right? I don't believe in dropping your yarn and just starting with a brand new one. It's not as clean looking as it is when you do it this way, because now you can see I didn't do anything to that stitch. That stitch is still blue, right? But I started the white on it, so all I did was pull that last thread through. Instead of pulling the last blue thread, I pulled a white thread through, and that allowed me to change colors, right? So now I just have to finish this row and 2 more rows, and we'll choose other colors, okay? So I'm going to put this away for a minute. We're going to read our article, and I need to put it away only because I need to make sure that we don't confuse our yarns, okay? Because this article here that we're talking about is about yarn. And I need my hands free because I said we were going to be doing a demo, right? So I'm going to read, and as we get to the various things, I'll show you what I'm talking about, okay? So, choosing the right yarn for a project can make the difference as to whether you love or loathe working on a crochet project. Here are 3 things to keep in mind when choosing the right yarn. So, the first thing to consider when choosing the right yarn is the weight of yarn you'll use. Yarn comes in a variety of weights, beginning at lace weight. So we were talking about lace weight, right? And lace weight and crochet are 2 different ones, okay? So I have one here that's similar to lace weight. It isn't, I think it's a 1, really. So it's not really lace weight per se. It is a 1, but it is in the lace weight category, okay? Because it's a 1 and a 2, right? So it's very thin and fine. Then fingering weight, which is slightly thicker. So we've been using fingering weight, right? So fingering weight is, this is actually fingering weight, what this is. This is a 2, which is what the fingering weight really is, okay? Which is slightly thicker. Then you have sport, which is even thicker, which is a DK, and that's what this is. This is a DK. This one's an acrylic, okay? Which is also known as worsted weight, right? And then there's worsted weight. And on to Aran and heavy worsted bulky, a thick yarn. And then you have a super bulky, which is a super thick yarn. I do not have anything super bulky. Bulky is the highest I've got. I used them for making teddy bears, okay? When you decide to crochet a project, the pattern will typically list the weight of yarn or how thick it is. If you use a large yarn for a pattern written for a smaller yarn, your project will end up much larger than expected and might be hard to use or wear. So if your pattern calls for fingering weight and you choose to use a worsted weight, now it's about the same yardage, believe it or not. This is thicker yarn. So if your project calls for a yarn weight that's this wide, right? So this is a 2, this is a fingering weight, right? And instead you use a worsted weight, and look, because the yarn's bigger, it's going to make a bigger piece. So if you want to use worsted weight, you need to make sure that you can get the proper gauge on it, okay? So gauge is very, very important. But we'll get into gauge onto another article. But right now, let's just remember what we're talking about, okay? So crochet thread. If you work with cotton crochet thread, the yarn size is by number. So number 3 is crochet thread, okay? It is a very thin yarn. I don't have any right now. I used to. And similar to fingering weight. So it's similar to this size, okay? So crochet thread is similar to this weight, okay? Is the thickest, okay? So number 3 is the thickest of crochet thread you can get. And similar to fingering weight. And number 10 is smaller and similar to lace weight yarn. So remember, you're using thread versus yarn, okay? So if you're using a crochet thread and you'd rather use crochet thread than to use yarn, and your pattern calls for a fingering weight, you'll use a number 3. If it calls for a number 10, you're going to find a lace weight yarn, right? Okay? So If you do really intricate lace work, you might even encounter number 20 and number 60 thread, which is sometimes difficult to work with because of its thinness. And as I'm older, I would know I could probably not even do it, okay? So now they have a chart here that goes over the types of yarn. So like I said, I don't have a lace weight. I do have a fingering weight, which is a number 1, okay? So this is fingering weight. As you can see, it's thin, right? Then you have sport weight, which is like a fine baby yarn, right? And I don't have any of that out right now. I don't have any sport, okay? But I do have DK, which is light worsted. So this one's a DK. It's a light worsted. So that means when it says it's light worsted, let me just put that back over where it belongs. It means it is thicker than fingering weight. There's my end. I lost it again. Here we go. It's thicker than fingering weight, right? Okay. But being light worsted, it is thinner than the worsted, right? So see, you can tell there's differences in the size of the yarns. That's how you know what your size are. As you start getting more familiar with yarn and you play with it for periods of time, like I've played with it for many years, okay? 42 to be exact. No, 45 years actually. So, since this, and this one is worsted weight, which is our next one. It's a number 4, okay? So, if we look at it, we also have a number 5 that's considered a bulky, right? So this is a bulky yarn. Is this a 5? Yes. So it says 5 bulky on it. So you can check your tags and they'll tell you what they are. And then there's, this is called chunky weight, okay? So chunky weight is a 5, okay? So this is chunky weight. I'm not going to pull it out of the hank, but we can put it up next to our worsted weight and you can really see the difference in size, okay? So that's worsted weight compared to super chunky. And then this is only chunky rug, okay? And then you have super bulky or super chunky roving, which is number 6. And then you have the jumbos. So anything bigger than the number 6 is the 7, and that entails all of the big yarns, okay? So they really don't, once they get up into the really thick yarns, they really don't define after that, okay? So the one thing that I want to bring up is, though, remember, each of them determine the size hook or needles you're going to use. So for the lace weight fine crochet thread, right, you're going to use a steel crochet hook, and you're going to use a 1.6, right? I'm trying to make it bigger so I can see. A 1.6 to a 1.4 millimeter. Okay? So that's 6, 7, or 8. For regular, you're going to use B1, which is the... So if you're using steel, you're going to use the 6, 7, 8. If you're using a regular, you're going to use B1, which is 2.25. And this one that I'm using here is, you can see how small this hook really is, right? You look at that hook, you can really see how small that hook is, right? It is only 4 millimeter. So you got to realize that the 2.25 is even smaller than this hook, right? This is the smallest hook I actually, oh, I don't actually. I probably have one of those smaller hooks. It's actually not in this bag, but I also use smaller hooks for my knitting, and these hooks, so this one's a 1.75. It's a steel hook, okay, so you can see that it's very small. See that tip? Can you see the tip on there? Come on, focus. So see how small that tip is? See if I pull it back a little bit. There you go. So you can see how small that tip is. It's 1.75, okay? So that's one of my smaller ones. So I also use that when I have an issue in my knitting, right? So if I have a stitch like I have here, and I'm not going to do it, but what I did is I messed up these stitches, and you'll see that if you mess up the stitches, it really messes up the back of your sock. So I have a couple that were actually knitted that weren't supposed to, and a couple that were actually slipped and they were supposed to be knit. So I have to drop them down and work on them. So that's what this is for, because I can work it and I can pull my stitches back, right? So when I drop them, I hook it, and then I actually manually knit those stitches back to the way they're supposed to be. Either they're supposed to be purls or they're supposed to be knits. So because I'm working back and forth here on the sock, I might even just, because it's so small and it's such a, it's really kind of hard when you have missed and you've done a mistake, because on the back, you have your loops on the back, and like this one, I had to drop that, and so it's wider. See how it's wider? Where is it? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? See how it's wider right there than the rest of the stitches? That's because right here, if you see this stitch, it is bigger than all the rest, right? Because I had to drop it. And so instead of doing that, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably pull it out, because as I'm looking back here, I'm seeing more and more mistakes. So I might actually put in so I can put in also is a lifeline. So I can go back to where I started, and I can put in a lifeline, and then I can pull this out, right? And I can put my needle back in, because there'll be a piece of string holding on to my needle, my stitches. So I just kind of wanted to show you how small the steel hooks can be. Okay, so that's 1.75, and if you're using a steel hook, they want a smaller one, 1.6 to 1.4. Okay, so your fingering weight takes a B, which is a 2.25, to a 3.5. Okay, and okay, and then sport weight is a 3.5 to a 4. Okay, and these are all for just hooks, because right now we're reading a book, an article about crochet, so they're only going to be talking about the hooks. So like a DK is a 4mm to a 5.5. Okay, so since I'm using sport weight on my blanket, which is a number 2, right? I'm using sport weight, number 2, and I am using a 4. It calls for 3.5 to 4. The pattern is 3.5. I took 4 just to make it a little bit. It's going to be slightly bigger, but I also cut out I didn't make it as long as the original pattern. So then if you go to worsted, you're using the 5.5 to the 6.5. If you go to bulky, you're going to use the 10.5 to 13, or 6.5 to 9mm, okay? Super bulky is 9mm to 15mm, and then the jumbo is 15mm or higher. You can also use your hand and your arm when you're doing knitting with the jumbo. Okay, so that's the yarn weight. That's just tells us what that picture is all about, right? That's the one we want. Okay, so let's go over fiber content. Okay, so the next thing to consider when picking the perfect crochet yarn, I hit a thing, is fiber content, or what the yarn is made of. Here are some examples of fibers you might encounter. So cotton. This is the cotton, okay? It's a cotton yarn, as well as this yarn is a cotton yarn, right? So cotton yarns come in various colors. It also comes in various weights, okay? So that's a 4 and that's a 3. That's a DK weight of cotton. Okay, so those are your cotton. You have wool. So this is wool spun. Okay, so this is wool. You can get it from Lion Brand. Okay, so if you're looking, you can get wool spun from Lion Brand. Or you can get superwash, which this is superwash, right? This one I think is superwash as well. Let's see. This one has, oh no, this has got 100% Peruvian Highland wool. So this is Highland wool, okay? So that's what this is. It's a Highland wool, okay? And this ball only has 201 yards on it, or 183 meters. And you're going to use a 5 to 6mm hook or needle with these, okay? And it's Vidala Ambient Worsted Color Weight Dawn Blush, and it came from Knit Crate, okay? I used to have a Knit Crate membership, so I have tons of Knit Crate, okay? And then here's another wool. This one is just 100% wool, right? It's not super washed, it's just plain wool, okay? So those are our wools. And then you have the superwash wool, which is this. This is superwash, and so is this. Okay, those are both superwash wools. Okay, and then you have acrylic. So this is my acrylic here. This has got a shiny sheen to it, right? Okay, and this one is, let's see what one we're looking at. This one is, it's got 276 yards, or meters. It's 100% acrylic, and it takes a number 3. And it's called Paint Box is the brand. And the color, it's simply DK, and then it's, I don't know what color this one is called. It's not saying. They got a color number, so they only give it a number, not a name. The color number is 150, okay? So that's paintbrush, and that's a sport DK. It's really just a DK weight, not sport at all. And it's a worsted weight. And then this is worsted as well. And this has, okay. That didn't help me a bit, did it? Okay. Well, let's see what this one's made of. So this one is 61% cotton, 34% acrylic, and 5% other fiber. So your other fiber is going to be the silver that runs through it. So you get this really pretty, almost like silver glitter effect when you're done with it. I'm gonna make a shawl with this one. Okay? And this is just called Shawl in a Ball. It's called Lotus Blossom. So, and it's a 4. The thin 4, but it's considered a 4. Okay? So, that is acrylic. I don't have any silk or linen, but they're really nice. I've had the opportunity to feel them and enjoy them at the Stitches conference. The fiber content of the yarn you select has a tremendous impact on how your project will look and feel. Fiber content affects the drape, how the fabric moves, the stitch definition, important to consider when using an intricate stitch or cables, the structure, and the heaviness of the final project. So let's take this project for example, right? I wanted a lightweight blanket, and I'm trying to get to the side that's not being crocheted right this minute. Okay, so it's a lightweight blanket. The stitch definition is very nice. You can see just what I'm trying to see. You can really see the pattern very distinctly when you pull it apart. And so those are the things you need to consider. Did I want this a tighter weave? No. I wanted it so that when it's done, it keeps me warm, but also has enough way to vent, because I live in Florida and I can stay warm in that blanket sitting in the house. But so you have to realize the drape. I wanted this to drape. Look at how nicely this drapes. It's got a nice light drape to it. So if I wanted to bring it in and I wanted to ruffle it and like make a skirt out of it, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Isn't that drape beautiful? So those are things you want to take in consideration when you're considering whether you want, what kind of drape, what kind of work you want. What do you want your work to look like? Do you want to see the definition of your stitches? What do you want to see? When you're knitting, when I'm knitting a sock, what do I want to see? Right? This sock is just plain stockinette. That's all. Plain stockinette. It's got a rounded toe, and it's got the heel turn, or the heel flap, heel turn, and the gusset in it, as well as it's a short sock, 23 rows, and then it has a 10-row cuff. It's a pretty simple one, but you want it tight, right? This doesn't have drape. This doesn't drape. I can't really put it into a nice curtain and have it draped nicely, right? It's a thick material I've made. It's all stockinette. Look at it. If you look at it, it's real close. It's all stockinette. And it's very tight, very small stitches. If I show you my needles, these are the size needles I use. They're small needles. I think these ones are, let me see if I can read it. I have to get just to where I can see it. And it's on, it's like weird. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to read the writing. Anyways, they come from my minis. I have minis and I have regular size. So I can put my tips on my various, I have all kinds, short, long. So I have I have like 4 sets of knitting needles total. Okay. So that's what you're thinking about, right? Because a sock's not going to have drape like a shirt or a sweater or a blanket, you know? And if you're going for a blanket that's going to be in a cold environment, you're not going to want it to be this loose. You don't want it to have this much air available. You want to make it a nice tight one, right? you're going to make a nice tight blanket out of it, right? Okay? I don't want a tight blanket because I don't live in a tight environment where a tight blanket would help me. Okay? Then you have yarn color, right? So we've saved most of the fun part about choosing yarn for last. Color. So what kind of colors? Color selection is a personal decision. And we could write a book on how to choose a color for your project. So, they actually wrote a book. It's called Color Booklet and Color Wheel. So, they have a book available that you can get that helps you with color, right? Just going to go back to our article. Your crochet project color choice depends on your own unique style, but with a wide variety of colorful yarns at WIP, we know you'll find the perfect shade of yarn for your next crochet project. And look at the wide array of just this set of yarn. Look at that. There are so many different color palettes sitting there, right? You have your browns and your mauves. Then you have your purples, a little bit of pinks. Then you have your blues. You have some dark greenish blues, and then you go into your blue greens, and then you have your greens, and then you have your oranges and your shades of yellows. Then you go into your pinks and reds. Okay, so there's lots of colors to choose from, right? As you can see, a lot of factors go into deciding which yarn to use for your crochet project. The best way to figure it out is to start crocheting. When you experiment with more yarns, fibers, colors, you will start to learn what you prefer. Happy yarn shopping. So, I have this other yarn. It's a stock yarn, but it's a little different than the other yarns. Let me see if I can get this pulled out of here without ripping my yarn all to pieces. Okay, so this one is bamboo. So this yarn, I said I didn't have yarn, but I do have bamboo. So this yarn is 55% bamboo, right? 37% cotton and 8% PBT, whatever PBT is. I have no idea. PBT. Okay, so it's 30 stitches by 36 rows, is 4 inches. That's if you're using a 2.25. Okay, a size 1, right? That's for knitting. For crochet, it's 24 single crochets times 28 rows, 4 inches, and you use a size C, which is a 2.75. Okay, so that's what this is. It is a sock yarn. It will be being used. It is made in Turkey, and it came from universalyarns.com. And I found it's called Riptide is the color, and I got this at the Stitches conference. This one is for socks for me. I have other colors in here that are socks for my husband as well. So I always, when I put my cake 'em up, I try to put the label inside so I can find it later, just like I just did. So that's another type of yarn. You have bamboo you can use, right? And this one's not the same as, look at this. So if I pull this out and we look at a same size yarn, and this one's got like just a little bit of difference in the way the yarn looks. So if you look at it, it's kind of lumpy, right? It's not flat and soft like this, right? It's kind of got a little flare to it, right? So the bigger flare you have, the better off you are, in my opinion, right? I want a big flare, right? So that's why I look for. I look for fun colors. This one's got blues and purples and pinks in it. It's really a really gorgeous color palette on that. So those are the various kinds of yarn that are out there. And what I've got is a small selection. There are so many other kind of yarns out there that you can find, right? So let's think about these things the next time you choose yarn for a project. Okay, because I put these things into mind all the time. How do I want my drape? That's when I'm choosing what I'm doing, and the needle I'm using, and the yarn I'm using, because it's a very soft superwash yarn. Okay, so it's all superwash yarn, superwash wool, and so it's wool. It's gonna be warm, but it's airy as well, and very drapey. So I can just drape it on myself as a lap blanket. And that's really what it is. If my legs and my feet are comfortable, the rest of me is. I know that we'll be going through some different things for us to go through. Different tutorials on here. I see lots of different things about mood boards and getting inspired by pretty tools. So we're going to start doing a little bit of venturing out, okay? I have stuff on inspiration in here. There's a bunch on technique, like mosaic crochet, tapestry, filet, Tuscan, and corner to corner. It has basic crochet stitches, foundation, Tunisian texture stitches, and decrease stitches. It goes over the basic. It gives you crochet tips for beginners, how to read a crochet chart, and how to block your crochet. So I have done all of these things, so we will be seeing what comes next, right? So with that said, I want to thank you all for coming. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you don't, a thumbs down is fine, but please let us know in the comments below why you gave us a thumbs down. As well as, if you want to be part of the Sunset Girl Creates family, we'd love to have you subscribe down below. If you subscribe down below, and right next to it is a bell icon, that if you choose that, it will let you know every time I upload a video. So with that said, I want to thank you all for coming and wish you a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Happy Friday. Bye-bye.